Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Street Level with Chris Chermak. I hope everybody got a chance to look at the episode last week with Dr. Jill Murray of Lackawanna College. It was a great discussion. I enjoyed it. Today, we have Carl Beardsley. We're switching directions here again. He's the executive director of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton International Airport. So we're going to talk about the history of the airport, how things were going, what happened during COVID, and where we're going in the future. I think it'll be great. And here's Carl Beardsley. All right, Carl. Thanks for coming in today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. Since I'm a pilot, this has a lot of interest for me. So, But I'd like to start out, tell everybody about yourself, how you got here and how you got to the airport.
Sure. Well, first of all, I've always told people that my dad was in the Navy, and he was stationed in Pensacola. And, of course, the Blue Angels are there in Pensacola.
Right.
So I must have smelled the fumes, and that directed me to go into an aviation career. And it's something that I've never let go of the entire time, that through my childhood into my adulthood, it's all been very, very aviation oriented. Let's put it that way. My girlfriend would tell you as well.
Okay. So before AVP, Scranton Wilkes-Barre International Airport, where were you before?
I was at the Binghamton Airport, which is just an hour, 15 minutes away.
Yep.
And I started in airport operations, working third shift and working snow removal and everything that you do on third shift.
Yeah.
I got up the ladder. I started out in airport operations. I went on to become Deputy Commissioner of Aviation. And then my final step in Binghamton was Commissioner of Aviation, and I was Commissioner for about 7 years.
Okay.
So that gave me a whole lot of experience to work from as I progressed in the industry. I knew I wanted to go to a bigger airport. This is one of the airports that I really had my eye on. Yeah. And when Barry Santini decided he was retiring, they reached out to me, and I went in at full force because I knew this is a good place and it's a place that I want to be. What I didn't know then, though, is how cool this community is. Yeah. I love it. My boys come into town. We have a good time here, and it's just a great way to go.
Yeah, it's a great part of the world to be here.
No question.
So, and I knew Mr. Santini, but how long ago did he retire? How long was that? Has it been
about 6 years ago.
6 years? Okay.
Yeah, we overlapped by about a month. He gave me some of his wisdom before he departed the pattern.
Okay.
And
some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, definitely. He well respected in the industry, the airport industry.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Mm-hmm. So a little history about the airport. I know I have a lot of notes here, but I know some of it. But.
Yeah. Well, everybody knows that the McDade family was a big part of this airport. It began with John McDade,
Yep.
who was the one who donated the land so that the airport could be developed.
That was 1939, I think.
Exactly. And then there was a lot of talk about the importance of having an airport, not just for civilian use, but for military use.
Right.
There's naysayers and there's people who wanted a full go. And ultimately it was decided that the airport was too important to pass up, and they decided to move forward on the site that the actual airport is on right now.
Did it have much military use ever?
A fair amount, from what I can tell. There aren't real good records dating back then, but it's more of the commercial service that they report on.
Okay. Because I do remember at some times over my life, a lot of military aircraft coming in and out there. And I think was the National Guard there for a while.
Yeah.
And they were flying, I know Chinooks were in there a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess
looked like an air show from what I can tell.
Yeah. Yep. I was over the flight path, so we saw them all coming in, which I kind of miss seeing that. But but back, so when it became, I think 1974 1995, it became an international airport.
Yes.
So for everybody that doesn't know about airports, and what designates an international airport?
Well, we don't have any commercial air service that's international.
Right.
But what we do have is we have general aviation planes that come in on a regular basis. And a lot of times they're coming from Montreal or they're coming from Toronto or someplace over the border in Canada that leads you over to Canada.
So,
And that is something that allows us to use the moniker of international airport.
but I think you have to have a customs to be international.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to have customs. But our customs at AVP is designated only for general aviation at this point.
Okay.
When they redid the terminal building, if you go down to gates 1 and 2, there's an actual station, an international station, that if the time came and we had enough demand and people were willing to support it, we would be able to step it up even more and go to that next level. One of the real goals that we have at the airport is to enhance cargo, and cargo and customs go hand in hand. So it's something we're going to be paying close attention to, not only in the near term, but in the medium term, so to speak.
Well, I hope so. That's just great for our area to get cargo coming in and out. Where you're right by the interstate, so that makes it easy getting in and out.
Yeah, and there's rail right
Yep.
next door. I mean, the people who look at it now talk about the fact that we're multimodal and the greatest extent that we can be multimodal. So that's going to help us when we go and we talk with cargo companies about the possibility of serving our market. As you said, there's highway access, there's rail access, bus access, and of course the air access, which is what we're most fond of.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing too for us, I mean, it's what an asset is to our area to have an airport like that. Basically, you can almost get anywhere from here, so that's no problem.
Right.
But it's so close, it's so convenient, it's easy. You don't have to worry about long lines and millions of people. It's great.
We always say that when you come to this airport, you're getting the big city amenities without dealing with the congestion.
Yeah.
You know, you're able to come to the airport. A lot of our connections work very well where you'll be able to take, say, a plane going to Washington, D.C. A business person goes down to Washington, D.C., has their meeting, and they're able to come back in time to watch their kids play soccer.
Yeah.
You know, it works out really well.
Well, I remember, I think it was 1988 maybe for me when I took my test, my flight exam, and that was it Danny Yatsko, I think was the name.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah. That was a long time ago. But all good. I'm
a private pilot as well.
Okay.
And I always like to tell people, when I took my private license test, the check ride, I had to fly from Nashua, New Hampshire to Concord, New Hampshire, I believe. And when I took that trip, before I took the trip, I asked the instructor, so are you going to come to Nashua Airport and go with me, make sure I'm doing everything right? He said, no, if you make it to Concord, that means you passed.
Yeah. I had a few of those.
Yeah.
A couple interesting flights by myself. You know, you can't just pull over and ask directions when you're flying. It's all you.
That's right.
And a couple times, you know, that was the day. There was no cell phones, no navigation system.
No. E6Bs.
We had Loran was basically being used, which I didn't have in the planes we were using.
Yeah.
But now I think it'd be so much easier.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know how they test people now. I don't know whether it's a case where they allow them to have the technology, or do they say you got to go back to the basics before we'll let you go?
I would hope they go back to the basics,
Yeah.
but you have that little thing strapped to your thigh with all your notes on it and your maps on it. And there's been a couple times where I wasn't exactly sure where I was, but I was where I was supposed to be. But it's a whole different ballgame when you're up there by yourself and you're looking down. But
yeah. And you're listening to the engine and want to make sure everything's going okay.
Yeah, exactly. So back to the airport. So we'll talk about how COVID affected, but so, you know, we're running along. Everything is great. I became a new member of the board.
And we're thankful for that.
Yeah, well, thanks. And all of a sudden the pandemic hits.
Yes.
And like everywhere else that I was involved, no rule books.
Mhm.
And we had to adapt, overcome, and deal with everything at hand.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, air travel basically shuts down.
Yeah.
How'd that go? That was not fun.
It was rough. No question about it. Our passenger boardings went down by 80% in 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's unheard of in the industry. Or in any business, really. If you go to a business person and said your revenues are going to go down 80%, they're going to get a pale face and maybe get sick.
Well, and it shuts down not only air travel, car rental. I mean, it affected so many different things at the airport, but you started to get through it.
Yeah.
I know you jumped right in both feet with taking care of disinfecting and
Mm-hmm.
sanitizing and distancing people. And
Mm-hmm.
I think you guys did a fabulous job and kept a positive attitude and kept going.
Yeah. I always like to say that the people who work at that airport, not just the people who work for the airport itself, but the car rental companies, the airline people, air traffic control, all the 400 airport jobs that exist at the airport, all did it together.
Mm-hmm.
They were making sure they're still very customer service oriented. They wanted to make sure that everything was clean and sanitized and that our customers felt safe when they went through the terminal building, and they did a fantastic job. And I would add this as well. I take leadership from the airport board, which of course you're heavily involved in, and without direction, we're not going to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a combination of all of the stakeholders who work at the airport or have an interest at the airport that made all this possible.
Yeah.
Now we've got some bumpy road ahead of us. We're starting to see some positive movement. It's all leisure, which is very interesting.
Right.
The business people still aren't flying for the most part, but what you are seeing is leisure. And that's why during Easter week, this week, and really the previous week, we saw an increase in passenger boardings.
Yeah.
And you'd walk down the security screening line, or I would, and all you'd see for the most part is kids carrying their pink suitcases, or families going on a vacation down to Florida. That's far different than what we used to be. If you comb back about a year, we're 70% business and 30% leisure. So in 1 month's time, because of the virus, we changed that all the way around.
Right. Well, and people are finding out that Zoom is a thing.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Unfortunately, for the air business, that's not a help. But I know. So just before the pandemic, I know we were talking about projects and things. I know you had things in the pipeline, things that you were working on at the airport, improvements. I think there was some air conditioning and HVAC type stuff that was in the works, and which got shut down, but not for long.
Right.
And then, lo and behold, the federal government stepped in and gave us a little help financially with COVID relief.
Yeah. I can't emphasize enough how important that support was to the airport.
Yeah.
It really was. And you only need to look at other airports to see how much you can really struggle if you're not able to bring in that revenue that the federal government put together, that package they put together. And it kept us afloat. It continues to keep us afloat.
Right.
But our revenues are starting to improve. And that means that we can start weaning ourselves off the federal money that we received. But I don't think any of us are ready for that as of yet.
Not yet. But that gave you the opportunity not only to help the airport, but to help the car rental people, the restaurant people. We didn't lose anybody.
We did not.
So that part's been good.
Right. It's helped our relationship with all the tenants at the airport, that we're able to support them and get them through this difficult time.
Well, we didn't have to.
Right.
That but not that we wouldn't have, but we didn't have to. And it did. It showed a lot that we cared and we didn't want them to go, and we knew that we were going to get through this. We're going to need them.
Yeah.
So,
I'll give you an example, and I think this really says it all. Is Philadelphia International Airport. You are talking about a massive airport, huge airport. And 3 months into the pandemic, they lost 80% of their food concessionaires. And we're not talking about people saying, oh, we can stick around if you could just help us out. They broke the contract and just left. Just left. So you think about it, when you go through Philadelphia International Airport, you're going to expect a certain amount of options to eat.
Mm-hmm. They're gone.
They're not. It wasn't there. It was probably McDonald's and a bar, and that was about all you were going to be able to get.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I just hope we're on the other side.
Same here. And for the local community too, not just for the airport, but the local community, because their support allows us to be an airport.
Yeah. So, and I know I'm part of this, but we'll talk about some of the projects that we're working on now. Mm-hmm. I know we have a new hangar going up, but just before that, what other projects did we complete just during? Was there anything that we did? I know we're working on runway or different thing for taxiways and improvements for the aircraft, yes. Which most people don't even realize, Right. And we get some big stuff in here. When you get Air Force One, they don't get much bigger than that. The C-5A comes in. That's huge.
Yeah.
So, you got to have good runways. You got to have good taxiways, support the weight.
Yep.
But what other, so besides the new hangar going up, what other projects do we have going and looking forward in the future? What do we have in the works?
Once the dust settles, we're going to get back into doing what's called a QTA, and that's called a quick turnaround facility. And it's for the car rental companies, and it's a place for car rental companies to bring their automobiles, have them cleaned, do light maintenance, and come back to the airport. And the reason why this is such a good project is that if you don't have this quick turnaround facilities, some of the car rental companies have to go off-site in order to clean their aircraft, or automobiles, I should say. If they have to go off-site and there's congestion, there's a construction project going on 81. Maybe it's a case where there was an accident like what we had last night.
Yep.
All of that's going to slow it down. So if you're a business customer and you've got to get to a meeting right away, and we're saying, well, it's going to take us about 30 minutes to bring the car in, that's unacceptable.
That's not good.
So we're going to have the QTA right on site.
And all rental companies will share that facility?
They will. And what's good is that we're able to pay for that building through what's called customer facility charges. And those customer facility charges come from the car rental companies. So they remit the money to us. We put it into an account. And when the time comes and we're going to do this project, we're going to be able to do it without asking for taxpayer support, without having any debt associated with it, except what gets paid for by these car rental facility charges.
Well, and I don't know if people realize too, a lot of the money that we deal with comes from the federal government, from the FAA. It doesn't come from local tax dollars.
It does not. No, we work very hard on that. We have very little debt at the airport. We get very little support, with the exception of the car rental companies, which the CFCs from the QTA building have a part in. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of debt service that we have, which is one of the reasons why we did so well with the federal government, because the federal government saw how we were doing a good job in using our money, not borrowing it, and keeping some money available to us if the time came and we needed it.
Well, you have great people working with you.
Absolutely.
And you do. You watch it like it was your own money.
You do.
And I know you do a great job at it.
Thank you.
Other future projects, we have the car rental, the hangar, who's going to be using the brand new hangar now that we have going up?
Aviation Technologies are going to have some of their customers moved into the new building. The new building is impressive. I don't know whether you've been able to take a ride by it?
No, not yet.
It's significant. It's a big building.
Yeah.
So they're going to be able to put some of the smaller aircraft in there if they need to. But what they really would like to do is have some business charter group come in who has maybe a Challenger or a King Air or something larger that we're going to be able to fill that hangar with.
Yeah.
We've had a list for quite some time of people who want to come in and use the hangar. Well, before this new hangar, we didn't have any vacancy.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a case where we were shooing people away when really we should be encouraging them to come to the airport.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it's like parking a car inside a garage.
Yeah.
And with these aircraft, you're talking millions of dollars. They don't want them sitting outside. So if you don't have hangar space, they're not coming.
No.
So I agree. And,
something called the tie down that we have out on the ramp, but that doesn't do it for the larger airplanes.
No.
It does it okay for a Cessna 172 or something like that.
Yeah.
But not for the big guys that we want to have them coming in and out.
No, absolutely not.
Just won't work.
So we have one fixed base operator now.
We do.
Nothing really in the future. I don't know. There could be. It could happen.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know. But we would have to develop more business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that cargo thing comes in as well. Right. Is the FBO would certainly be more successful if they had a cargo company coming in and out. Yeah. And we're working hard to see if that's a possibility in the future.
Well, I hope so. Mm-hmm. I know there's a lot of good things coming, and I see light at the end of our tunnel here for this pandemic. Mm-hmm. I know we were talking about this just before we came on, but yesterday we worked at our Montage Mountain site at the pavilion, and we did 3,600 vaccinations. So if we can keep that going, and the more we get done, we'll get back to where we can ride on airplanes all together, and travel and business travel should pick up, I hope. Yeah.
I think you were able to see during the last board meeting that we had one of the local businesses creates a care package that they're sharing with their employees who are going on a trip in the air. Yep. And it has sanitizing fluid in there. It has everything that you could ask for before going on a trip.
Anything you need to travel.
Exactly. Yep. And I like that in that companies are thinking, how can I make air travel safe? Mm-hmm. And how can I make it so my people are comfortable doing it? Yeah. And they're going above and beyond, and I applaud them for that.
Oh, it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. What other future plans? Anything that you can talk about that's coming up that I'm not thinking of for our airport? I know we have stuff maybe in baggage claim. I know we have some new equipment coming in there.
Yes. The baggage claim carousel is about 16 years old right now, and it's squeaky, to say the least. Mm-hmm. We don't like to have that be the first impression of people who come through the airport, so we've really made that a priority. It might not be the funnest project in the world, but it certainly serves a purpose. Wow. No question about it.
It's, definitely, especially when it doesn't break down.
Right. Air service, we're always after ways to increase the amount of passengers who are going through the airport. And if we're able to increase it to a certain level, the airlines are going to take notice because they did before. When we first started on our big run, we almost had 300,000 people go through the airport. 300,000. And those were after 4 consecutive record-setting years. Now, when we were going up to 300,000, the airlines were adding service. Mm-hmm. Now, we've decreased since then, obviously, because of the pandemic. But we're still making the case that once you start turning this around and the businesses get involved more with air service, I think this is a place you need to take a look at. And we've gone beyond that as well. We applied to the federal government for a grant. It's called the Small Community Air Service Development Grant. And the purpose of that is to provide incentive and seed money to airlines to provide service in your market, especially airports that lost air service during the pandemic. Yeah. And that had an effect on us. Delta Airlines left the airport, and it was during the pandemic, and that was their reasoning.
Well, that's a big question that comes up to me a lot. Are we getting them back, or are we getting new people? I know you're always looking to who can come in and give us some support. Right. Is there a chance that Delta could come back?
Oh, there is. Yeah. Absolutely. But we've got to show them who we are.
Need to get rear ends in the seats.
Exactly. So. Exactly. So we're going to We're not going to rest on that. We're
Yeah.
going to push very hard. First of all, I think I could say that our priorities, Delta with service gone to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Our Charlotte service that we have today is doing fantastic. And those are the people who want to go from here down to Florida.
Right.
And they stop in Charlotte, which is a wonderful airport.
Nice airport. Yeah.
And they're on their way.
Yep. That's a nice stop because it's not it's similar in our airport here because it's modern, it's nice, it's clean, and it's a nice stop. How about Atlanta? Well, that's Delta, right?
It's Delta.
Well, hopefully. Would you think there'll ever be some direct flights to Florida besides what Boscov's offers?
Yeah, I do. I think Florida markets, especially Orlando and Tampa, usually make up our top 5 markets going in and out of AVP, And that catches their eyes. When an airline planner is looking at a place to go to, he or she sees the amount of traffic that's going south, mostly through Charlotte. They're going to say, I want a piece of that. So that's when they start doing their analysis, talking to us about what's going on. One of the plans, though, one of the things we need to convey to them, though, is that you don't think that it's just about Orlando trips, because we want the businesses to also be able to go through Charlotte or go through Atlanta and go to the place that they want to go. The airlines also like the business flyers. They're the ones who usually pay a little bit more to go on their flights, therefore making the airline more profitable than they would if it was entirely people going to Orlando for $55.
Yeah.
Not to say we're not after that.
Oh, I know.
But something we're paying close attention to at the very least.
Now, how about going west? What do we have that way?
We have Chicago going west, and United just reported that they had 1,000 additional travelers go through, comparing this month with the previous month. So United going west, which Charlotte was always going very well. There was never an issue there.
Leisure.
Yes, exactly. Going west took a little longer.
Yeah.
And we had Detroit service. The Detroit service, unfortunately, was with Delta. And that Delta service, of course, like I said, went away.
Yeah.
But Detroit did pretty good numbers. Atlanta did fantastic numbers. So I'll say it again. I think we have a strong argument with Delta Airlines.
Yeah, I think so too. And like we talked about before with business travel, once that starts picking up, because let's face it, people aren't going to want to do Zoom forever. They'll do it for some things, but you need face to face. You need that interaction. So I think once business travel starts picking up, we'll be seeing some more flights there, and then I'm sure we'll see Delta back. I'm hoping. So,
we'd also like to get in a low cost carrier.
Right.
We'd like to work with the Allegiants of the world, the Spirits of the world, and that way people can go on a direct flight from here to there.
Yeah,
and usually they're very affordable flights. It's a good element for us to have as a part of the options that we offer people when they leave this airport.
Well, I think every airport needs that. They definitely do, and we do. Any other future plans that we didn't talk about?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the new taxiway going full length.
Yep.
Something we never had before.
Yep.
What ended up, as you know, you have to back taxi if you wanted to go all the way to the end.
Right.
And that's something that's not very efficient.
Well, it's not, especially for the big stuff. The little bug smashers that I fly, and no big deal. But and one thing you'd never leave runway behind you. So when you're taking off, you want to use the whole thing. But so that's going to be good. But it took a lot to do that because you had to move electronics and different things that were part there in the way. A lot of work there. So a lot goes into it.
Yes, we're up on a hill. And when we need to level something off, that means fill and rock needs to be brought in. Yep. So we're at the same elevation.
Other things that I like about our airport here is, I talked about how, you guys and your crew, the maintenance people, keep that place spotless. It's got to be the cleanest airport in the world, as far as I'm concerned. Yep. It's
I appreciate you saying that.
It's meticulously maintained.
And you know what I like about it too is you could make the argument to someone who didn't know the airport and say, "We just had the ribbon cutting a year and a half ago, And I don't think anybody would say, no, you didn't, because it's so beautiful. And the people who work
Yep.
there keep it up so well. And the leadership of the board and my staff members, they're all fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why it looks so good.
Yeah. And everybody pitches in.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got through winter. Well, we're not all quite done yet, but did you have to move any snow today, or were you okay?
We were okay.
All right.
It melted when it hit the ground.
Up where I live, it's stuck a little, but not bad.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know if people realize what it takes. I mean, that runway has to be spotlessly clean
Yes.
all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the equipment that we have there, the broom trucks and the plow trucks and the equipment is crazy.
Yeah.
And we maintain it. You have guys taking care of it, operating it.
Yeah.
Fire crews with the fire equipment. They're always ready to go at a moment's notice.
Go ahead. Excuse me.
No, I was just, what I was going to get at was our safety record.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Very
unblemished.
high. Yep.
It's fantastic.
Yep. But that's, people don't know, because I didn't know, but all these folks, the maintenance people, they're all cross-trained. So if there's an emergency, it's all hands on deck.
Exactly. Yeah. They come out, and if there's what we call as aircraft rescue and firefighting, they all been signed off on trucks and other vehicles to respond if there's a situation. And we meet FAA compliance, make sure that we do that on a regular basis. We're always hopeful that we don't have an emergency situation, but we're also thoughtful enough to say we've got to be ready.
Absolutely.
If anything ever happens, we've got to be ready.
Yep.
You don't want to get complacent on this sort of thing.
No.
And we actually go away, usually to Pittsburgh, but sometimes to Rochester, New York, and they have a live burn.
Mm-hmm.
They have a simulator, and it's an airplane, and it's on fire, and you ask your people to go in there and put the fire out and save the people who are on the plane. Mm-hmm. And our people they're fantastic at it. They do a wonderful job.
Yeah. Now, and I know we do mass casualty practice and stuff. Is that every year, or is every so many years?
Every 3 years.
Every 3?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's all good training.
Yeah.
But we talked about future plans, and I like to talk about the benefits of using our airport. I'm talking for people that live here.
Mm-hmm.
It's so convenient. It's easy to get to. Parking is simple.
Yeah.
You don't have to walk 20 miles when you park your car.
Exactly.
You have indoor or covered parking, and then outdoor parking.
Yeah, which not everybody has.
No.
Allentown does not have a covered parking lot.
No.
Who would have ever thought that? I would have never thought that.
No. And again, spotless, everything. And now even our walkway from the parking area to the terminal building, you guys created a runway.
We are so proud of that.
That is, I love it. I love seeing that. But it's got the runway lights. It's got the painted. You feel like you're walking on the runway. So that's pretty cool.
You know what I hear?
That.
The most I hear about that is it's always not real young kids, but maybe say 8 to 10 years old, and they all say the same word. Then when they see it, cool.
It is cool. I love it. I thought it was great. Yeah. It was just a simple thing like that. But you get out of your car, you walk. It's great. Mm-hmm. Nobody else has that I know of.
Nope. In fact, the director of Harrisburg International Airport said, "Carl, just so you know, I'm stealing that idea."
Stole your idea? Yeah. It's all good. It's all good.
And I wanted to say one other thing about the snow removal operations is that when you're talking about a plow blade, you're talking about like 22 feet. Mm-hmm. Or a broom truck, they're usually 26 feet. So these trucks, these vehicles are bigger than what you're going to see on a regular winter day out in the city of Scranton. It's just so much bigger. The broom trucks just clean the runway almost to the point where it's just blacktop and that's it. Yeah. And I've always had people say, "Can't you get a smaller version of that and send it down to my house?"
Yeah, right.
So we can get it cleaned up, because the plows always leave a little bit of residue. And if it's really cold or we're at a precipice of going below freezing, then you could run into problems with it.
And you can't. I don't think people know that either. You can't put rock salt down. Like, you can't do that with aircraft.
No.
It's clean it and that's it.
Exactly. It's a corrosive.
Yep.
And the airlines don't, or even general aviation doesn't want it to be a case where you get rock salt on the airplane and all of a sudden it's rusting. It doesn't give off the best impression.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. Well, I know we're going to move up on travel. I know business travel is going to start picking up.
Mhm.
I'm very confident. I know we've had an uptick already. Slow, but it's coming.
Yeah.
And we're moving forward. But I know there's one thing you wanted to talk about is the real ID,
Yes.
which is important. And I have my paperwork right here to get mine because I don't have mine. So I'm going to work on that.
Poor Chris, he has to deal with me talking about this on a monthly basis.
Yeah, but that's okay. It's important. And look, I'm still dragging my feet. But we had a pandemic. What are you going to do?
All right, Real ID. The deadline, the newest deadline is October 21st of this year.
Mm-hmm.
After October 21st, based on what the federal government is telling us, is that if you don't have a Real ID or a passport, then you're not going to get through security screening.
Right.
And what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to get to your destination.
Yeah.
And if you have that wedding that you've been waiting for so long, or that vacation that you've been waiting for so long, I don't think anybody wants to lose that.
No.
And I want to just encourage the community to make sure they get a Real ID compliant license, or as I said, if you want to travel with a passport, you can do that. I tend to want to get Real ID just because I don't carry my passport anywhere. I have one, but I don't take it anywhere, and I'm afraid I'm going to lose it.
Right.
Real ID, I'm used to having a license in my wallet, so it's a case where I feel more comfortable with that.
Well, and it's not just for flying. You want to go into a state building, you go on an Army base. I forget other things. You got to have a Real ID to do it.
Exactly.
And it's not as hard as you think to get it.
Mm-mm.
There's a checklist. You just go on Pennsylvania's Department of Transportation website.
Right.
I printed it off today, so I have a reminder to get mine.
Mm-hmm.
But they postponed it a couple times. I think there's a hard stop here at this year.
Yeah.
I think October of 21.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to have it. They're not going to extend it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it's easy to do, and I encourage everybody to do it too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You have anything else you'd like to add that we talked about?
I always make sure that I reiterate the fact that we are so proud and so happy to have the community behind us. There's a lot of airports in this country who don't necessarily get along very well with their neighbors or with the municipalities, or just there's a laundry list of stakeholders.
Yeah.
We've always had a good relationship with the municipalities, with the stakeholders, with the business communities. They give us recommendations. We hear them out. I think they understand that we're paying close attention to what they have to say. And we're always trying hard to make sure that we not only meet their expectations, but exceed their expectations. Mm-hmm. And we're going to continue to do that.
Yep. Well, and I know you will. And you do a great job at it. So, well, I want to thank you for coming on. I hope we got a little information out there for people.
Mm-hmm.
But I know if they have any questions, they can always call the airport.
Yes.
They can certainly call me, and I'll get them in the right direction because I don't have all the answers. But we have a good group of people there. You do a great job.
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure to get to meet you. And I'm happy to serve on the board with you. And I look forward to it. Every month I look forward to our meetings and see what's going on. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you down at the airport.
All right.
All right.
My favorite place.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Carl for coming on today, talking about the airport. It's a great asset to our region. Next week coming on, we have Gus Fahey of Valley in Motion. It's a new community-based organization, and their mission statement is fostering community and quality of life in the Lackawanna Valley. So that should be a very interesting show next week, so I'm looking forward to it. So remember, if you liked this episode or any of the other episodes, it's all paid for by the Friends of Chris Chermak. If you'd like to donate, that's much appreciated. Please send us a note, and we'll tell you where to send the money. If you like this episode and you want to share it, comment, please do so. Tell your friends, and we'll see you all next week.